It's the weekly 30-30 trading list on the ASX. We are looking at the 30 strongest momentum companies over the quarter and this week's 30 best launchpad stocks. We've seen lithium and uranium companies running hard and they're fighting the current that's taking the market down. The market's running in a volatile and fighting fashion. But Gary Glover's been trawling through the charts and finding the best opportunities. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Chris. Not too bad.
We're back to the list, and we see some familiar names in these leaders. What did the momentum ones dig up for you this week?
Yeah, so look at the quality momentum there. The top performers here is kind of some smaller names, so probably just a few explorers there. So ASN, which is Anson Resources there, pretty small play there. That's obviously on a bit of a tear here at the moment. Low volume pullbacks and then buying up here, but yeah, it's pretty small here. Number two is even smaller, probably 12 cents here, so had a bit of a move, maybe a little bit of selling into that top there. That's probably a slight negative there, but yeah, just a lot of just quite a few sort of smaller players in the list there. One from last week was on there as Deep Yellow, which obviously the uranium stocks, as we highlighted last week, was sort of, they were in the launch pad there. So they've sort of kicked on here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Deep Yellow was in there. Paladin on the list as well. Yeah, just a few of those plays there have sort of continued on. One I did sort of see on the list there, but actually I was on with Carl Kupperwinkler on AusBiz yesterday, and Carl actually brought this one to our attention. There was HIO, which has had a nice little breakout there. It's a nice little move above the 50-day moving average there. Again, probably early stage in that iron ore sort of development there. So not too bad volumes there, but yeah, still pretty early here. So interesting thing on here when I looked at the weekly was this actually had some pretty good volume on the way up here, Chris, and then all through here, through the decline there's never really too much, it wasn't too many, heavy down days really. It just wasn't. This is kind of like this sort of, apart from the exhaustion of the high, there wasn't sort of like a lot of sort of selling all the way through here. It was pretty light. So
is that you're not seeing opportunistic selling? It's just that the buyers have taken their foot off the pedal.
Yeah, well, I mean, apart from the exhaustion there, we obviously got a bit high and there was some big profit taking off the high there. But then once we sort of got into a groove here, you can see here sort of, pretty much from this lower high here all the way through there wasn't really too many big volume days in there. So it wasn't a super aggressive selling there, just had a bit of a correction in price and time there. So I started to move up here. So, I like to see these sort of break a swing high before I get involved there. So that'd be the first little high there, sort of somewhere around 34 there. So we can see that it did sort of poke its head above there, had a couple of inside days, and then kicked on again. So you don't want to jump on these two things too early there. You want to sort of see a little bit of a price action there. I think some of the smaller risky stuff is probably, I view this as sort of, I still think we're in a bit of a bear market here, so the riskiest stuff's sort of on offer here. So you just got to probably, trade light here. Temple and Webster back on the list there. So you might have, this is the 0, 1, 2, 3 that you might have been referring to. Still sort of hanging on here. The volumes are probably not as strong here so far. So sort of probably weakening off a little bit. So that's probably the only concern there, is that this last leg here is probably a little bit lighter than some of these other volumes through here. So that would be a little bit of a concern there. TPW, NEU, which is one that we sort of talked about a while ago. So again, just having this, so we got this little, cup and handle sort of set up in here. Bit of a consolidation after a strong move. So just didn't sell off here, just kept making high lows, and then it sort of poked through and sort of moved on here. So oftentimes, these sort of patterns there, Chris, if we sort of measure the size of these patterns here, so what's that, sort of 6 to 530 sort of, so 70 cents. So looking for probably a target around that 670. So I think want to get to 660. So maybe you can go a little bit higher here, but that's the sort of, the measured move that you're looking for and those sort of things. GL1 was actually one that I did actually see as well. Nice little tight consolidation in here. So this little, almost call this little flag in here. Pretty impulsive move there. Not super great volumes there, but did see some good volumes out of this. First day out of this low here, saw some pretty good volume. So yeah, again, if you're looking for a little, break out of the congestion there, wait for a little break above swing high there. So maybe break above 184 might have had you interested. A good volume there, and we've sort of moved on here. But so I think it's a market there. I wouldn't be sort of trying to hold these things too long. Still think it's pretty choppy out there. Myer's one actually, interesting in here actually was that there was a little VCP pattern here, Chris. See a little pullback here, sort of tighten up again, and then another little tighten as well. So look at the
mini VCP within a month kind of thing.
Yeah. And look, look at that. There's just no selling there. Sort of, it's a bit like the Silex there, which is actually still in the list here, which is quite amazing. And we talked about how there's no selling there, how all these pullbacks, there's just no selling in there. There was a little bit of selling in here, but then not much here. Again, like we'd had a down day there yesterday. There's not much selling coming through here. So still not much selling coming through here. So still sort of keeps sort of hanging on this one here. Yeah, it's a bit long in the tooth. You'd probably, safer to sort of buy these things after a bit of a consolidation, but still sort of continues to sort of keep sort of kicking along here. Liontown was one that I thought was pretty interesting, a bit like the NEU, that had that nice impulsive move, and then there's like a little ABC here, little sideways congestion pattern here. And I think after that point there, you'd held nice and tight. And then again, once this is 160 to 180, we're probably looking for this to break up by the size of this move by at least, maybe go possibly higher. So that's got some momentum there as well. So that looks quite good in the short term.
And coming out of that low below $1 to a rally just at $1.80, that be fitting the high tight flag criteria.
Yeah, that's right. I like these sort of tight little flags here. Sort of just a little, talked about, Elliott waves, sort of, these little ABCs in there. That's sort of the most common pullback. It's probably the safest sort of top of pullback. Similar in size too. So this, A, B, C. So A equals C is sort of the most common type of correction there. So yeah, so that looks pretty interesting as well. CXO was the one that I actually did notice myself. Had that little pullback under the high here. So this is potentially a cup and handle sort of setup in here. So pretty, not pretty interesting. And you're not seeing too many of these sort of patterns here really, because the market hasn't been particularly strong. So normally you see this pattern in a strong market.
Well, funny you say that. I was, after our conversation on Tuesday, I filtered through and found the cup and handle potential for CXO too, which is, as you're saying, rare in this market right now.
Yeah, that's right. So it's that's a reasonably sort of bullish sort of setup here. So there's some good volume through here. Bit of a handle there. So yeah, what would be nice here, Chris, is be some sort of like a little tight flag here. So something like this, maybe 3 or 4 days here. No set, basically just to dry up here underneath the handle, and then push on there. So definitely one to keep an eye on here. So it's just the market's sort of tough to sort of see too many signals there. One that I did sort of see yesterday, which was been in our list there recently, not there now, but this CUV which was in that sort of biotech there. It had a nice little tight flag in there as well. See that little, it's again this little, that's almost a little cup and handle in there as well. Staying reasonably tight there. But yeah, sometimes you see the messy there. If you actually drilled into the half hourly chart there, see there's a nice little BCP in there.
That is too, isn't it?
Yeah, and just sort of you could just sort of watch these tighten up here. You just sort of you buy the break here, and you're going to get a bit of a move here. So still getting a few moves there. I just don't know if you're going to get big. This market feels like a lot of these sort of signals that they're still pretty good signals, but I don't think you're going to get the big moves that we saw previously. It seemed to be the moves are tend to moving and then sort of stopping. So yeah, but
Just
Yeah.
on those inside days that you're talking about, are those that tight congestion, 1, 2, 3, 4, those 5 candles before the breakout, after the
Yeah.
breakout, their ranges are all within that big green candle on the left. Is that the kind of thing that Toby Crabble talks about, that 4 inside day?
Yeah, I don't know about I'm not sure about Toby Crabble, but that's a sort of, yeah, if you see that sort of congestion, that sort of, you know, coil nice and tight, you know, obviously the rules with a couple of handles sort of try to keep them, you know, in the higher part of the range, not have too deep a correction. You don't want to see this come back too deep. I mean, the tighter this is, the better there. But yeah, I thought it was just an interesting sort of pattern there. There's just a few. I mean, quite a few of the lithium stocks were sort of making this sort of pattern there. What else did I see there? I mean, there was one there. There's a nice little VCP in there.
I think you picked this one up before.
So yeah, it might have been. I'm not sure it was on the list previously or not, but yeah, just been tightening up here the whole thing here. It's a bit light to trade here. It was very tough to get a position on this one. So I would not be trading it in size at all. But yeah, there's a few little movers out there. On your launch pad there, one that surprised me actually was Megaport was sort of come back in there. But probably quite good in a way, because that sort of had like a little bit of it's had a decent pullback here. And that now starting to sort of turn back up again. So yeah, this is pretty interesting here. I mean, sometimes when you sort of see these congestion pullbacks like that, this is probably a little deeper than you'd like to see. I like to personally like to see them hold above the 50-day. But then what you know, if you are going to enter in these sort of things there, you just got to see a break above the previous week high there. So I think that, you know, 733 might have been a little high there. So you're probably waiting for some sort of break here. But again, we saw a little bit of a, you know, little light volume down there, and then you saw a little bit of a pop here. So breaking above that little swing high might have got you, you know, a little interested there. But again, it's a choppy market here as well, so probably wouldn't trade things too long. I saw Brainchip was in there as well, so yeah, pretty wary of this sort of company. But again, the chart's sort of pretty messy sideways move here. Again, we've sort of been in a little downwards consolidation here. To see how this traded all the way down here, didn't, you know, wasn't until we broke above a swing high that it had a bit of a pop. So this has just broken a swing high here yesterday. Maybe it can have a little pop here, but I'd still be suspicious about how far this can go. Still a lot of risk with Brainchip there. So saw a few guys sort of calling this the most overvalued stock in the market. So just gotta be careful when you people talk in those sort of lights.
It's quite a title, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Betmakers is sort of interesting as well. Yeah, look, we've got a pretty mean downtrend, sort of, you know, we really just keep making lower highs here. But again, if you start to, you know, just want to sort of keep an eye on if we get broke up here, maybe we can have a little pop. But yeah, just a few things there. ResMed was sort of interesting, had that sort of pullback in there, and they had a little bit of pop there. So this is what sort of some stocks can do here. I noticed you know, Treasury Wines had done something quite tight, car sales had something quite tight, and then they've sort of popped up here out of these sort of ranges. So this is not, it's come back a little deeper, obviously below the 50-day moving average there. But again, you can kind of see through here, Chris, the volumes are pretty light. And then we got this, you know, first day up here, we got a bit of volume there. Be hard to trade this one because it really sort of popped. You know, you want to sort of see it break through a high there. So we're coming in a bit late here, but that's pretty interesting there. I mean, Treasury Wines, sort of another one. Look how tight that is up there. But that looked pretty interesting as well. Sort of really get
those
nice and
flags
tight.
that you're talking about, aren't they?
Yeah. Just sort of, you know, once they sort of they start to move up here. So that's sort of, again, it's still a bit late stage here, but you know, we've seen here sometimes these late stage can continue to keep going. So can move forward there. COB sort of one as well. It's had that little pullback, come back, hit the 50-day moving average, very light volumes, and then we've sort of turned up here. So interesting there. Not volumes off the low was a little bit of a worry because it's sort of very light popped. Volume a little higher, so be a bit suspicious of that. But what else was that? AVX. very small stock here as well, but not bad volumes there coming off that low. Gold Road sort of interesting to me actually. This is just because we saw some decent volume down this low. It's had a bit of a bounce up here. It's looking a bit stronger than some of the other gold stocks there. The volume here. So there's there's a little. I mean, you can almost say that was a little in your half hourly chart. There's probably a little inverse head and shoulders there. But that's sort of interesting there as the volume sort of coming in here. So watching some of the golds. I think DUB had a bit of a bounce as well. But again, sort of it's pretty tricky to trade some of these. I don't know. I'm trying to muster up the willpower not to trade too much here at the moment. Just feel like it's a pretty negative market. Market's had a pretty decent move, just having a bit of a bounce here because everyone got over short. So probably kind of squeeze a few shorts out again. But yeah, so pretty sort of choppy sort of market out there. Probably not, a few things sort of still running here, but yeah, at this stage, I'd just be looking for those little tight consolidations. Maybe just trade a little bit of a move, and then take your licks and move on. I just think the market's not really having that big sort of kick on and follow through. I think the little technical patterns are sort of they're working still, but the moves are a lot shorter. So I'll just be trading smaller, taking my profits a little earlier, and just keeping my tights pretty my stops nice and tight as well here. But it's a bit messy out there. But I think we're coming into September, October here, which is can be sort of riskier months here. So yeah.
Well, that's a lot to work with, given the market criteria. And as you said, it's kind of like their wings are clipped in the sense that the patterns are still working, but the runs are not as big. So are you still trading those in your portfolio, or you dialing back?
Yeah, I'm definitely dialing back. So I've sort of because we're sort of index is down. So I'm my rules sort of suggest that I should only be betting half size because the index is sort of in a bearish condition here. So yeah, really just trying to keep it nice and small and nice and tight here. It's funny actually. I'd sort of actually made a trade during the week, which sort of went against some of my rules. I analysed the trade and realised that it was probably just going to go down another day and then bounce. So I actually got myself out of there quick smart, even though I knew the thing would bounce, and it has bounced since then. But I knew I'd made a mistake. It's sort of, as traders, sometimes if you make a mistake, sometimes it's just better to be out of it. You don't want to be watching it. It consumes your time. If I've made a bad trade, I like to sort of just unwind it straight away and then go and get back to good habits and trade the formations I should be trading. You know what I mean? So every now and again, as traders here, we can make a mistake and fall in a trap there. I don't like to sort of hang on to my mistakes, even though I sort of went and analysed it and thought, oh, this is it's probably just going to
legs.
Yeah, it's probably going to overshoot a little bit, and then it's going to come back, and it'll give me a chance to probably get out. Probably make a small profit if I hang on to it, but I end up sort of it jumped on the day I thought it would, and I exited for a small loss. But it was just I could have hung in there, but I just for mental prosperity, I just didn't want to be there. I think sometimes traders there, we sort of if you make a mistake here, you just want to move on, focus on the good trades, and then just pull your energies into trading the signals that you're meant to. So there's a process you're supposed to follow. Your playbook, I think everyone should have a playbook there of sort of particular patterns or setups that they want to trade, and then just focus on those. As soon as I'd sort of the day after I realised I'd traded this because a client was pretty keen, I thought looked quite good. Then I realised that I'd gone in for the wrong premise. So I mean, the best of us make mistakes. So me personally, as soon as I realise I've made a mistake, I like to rectify it straight away, and then I just like to get back to doing everything right. Sort of, those little mistakes. Sometimes if you make a mistake and it's only a small loss, I view that as a blessing, because then we just can get back to focusing on good trades here. So since then, all the trades I've been taking are all good ones and right setups and following the process, and there we go.
So a bit of a trader psychology question for you with the Mike Douglas bent. Is it more you look back at that trade and go, look, while I made a mistake, I'm applauding myself for recognising the mistake acting quickly and exiting it, as opposed to berating yourself for making the mistake in the first place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't want to sort of, use up mental energy watching it for a few days, watching it closely, and then my focus comes away from looking for good trades and right setups and managing the other trades that I'm in, which are on the right premise and have the right setups. And yeah, because then it means I'm not, some of the good positions I have, if I get the right setup, I should be scaling up on some of those. So a bad trade will take up a lot of your energy sometimes, mental energy. So I realized one day that I'd made a mistake, and I knew I'd get a half a chance to get out. Look, I could have hung in there for a couple more days and made some more money, but I figured, I was actually due that loss because I didn't trade it the right way. So, moved on and on. Found something else, and I found 2 other good trades as a result of that, and they've both done well. So that's where you just got to correct yourself and get yourself back on the right path there sometimes.
Nice. Well, they're good insights on the charts and the trader psychology. Thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
If you want to learn more about the VCPs, you can click on the right. If you want to see Gary's portfolio updates on the Tuesdays, that's also on the right-hand side.